Hey, hi, hello, welcome to episode 110 of Trail Society, brought to you by Rabbit. I'm Corinne Malcolm,
I'm Keely Henninger.
And I'm Hillary Allen.
and it is daytime where Hillary is. It is dark o'clock here in the PNW. Hilly, where are you?
I'm in Spain still. Yeah, you guys are doing a solid and getting up super early to talk to me before you guys are starting your days. But yeah, I'm still in Spain after World Champs.
Nice. We're excited to dive into the World Champs debrief today because you were there racing the vertical, but we know you got a little extra mileage out of World Championships. So we'll dig into that in a second. Keely, you were just enjoying the colors in Park City, had a little bit of a fall break in medical school. Like how was break and what are you hopping back into now that you're back in Portland?
Break was great. It's probably my last break until I take step one, which I think I've said on this podcast before. So I really tried to embrace it and I studied maybe like 6 hours the whole week. So I feel like I'm getting back into the swing of things, but Park City's great. It was yellow right now. I got to see friend of the pod, Rachel Drake, for a couple days. And then we stayed in Park City, which is our like feels like our home away from home because we're there so often. And yeah, just got some good mountain biking in. It's just like total mountain bike season right now. The trails are in such good condition because they've gotten a little bit of rain, and so it was so fun. Um, and yeah, we're hopping back into the narrow block right now. We actually don't follow like a proper quarter or term system, so we split the block for this break. So we had like a break in the middle of a block. And then I'll finish up neuro in like a couple weeks, neuropsych, and then we finish with developing human, which is like gonna be right up my alley, and then we go into step one prep. So we're almost done. It's kind of crazy.
That's you're gonna be in clinic all the time pretty soon. That's
Hmm.
wildly exciting. If you're watching on the YouTube and you can see my tiny little square, there is a green lichen colored sun hoodie that arrived
Hmm.
early.
They
I don't
are
know, Hillary.
so pretty.
I was gonna say, Hillary, you probably didn't get yours before you left, did you?
No, I did. I brought mine with me.
Oh, nice. Yeah, really pretty green. Oh my goodness. So if you haven't got one, you gotta head over to Run Rabbit, runninrabbit.com. Use the code HOPTOBER, which is maybe their most punny code yet. So it's HOP, HOP, Tober, TOBER 10 for 10% off in October. And go get yourself one of those lichen green sun hoodies. They're so pretty. It's like the picture could not do it justice. It already looked beautiful in the picture, and then in person, it's just next level beautiful. So.
Yeah, and then while Hillary was busy racing up and down, it turns out a mountain, um, we got to get a little sneak peek at some of the spring print ideas. Keely, can you tease it a little bit or just say how pretty things are going to be?
I mean, there were pinks in there, and it was a lot bigger of a pattern than this last one. And yeah, it's very beautiful. It's very unique. It's a new pattern for Rabbit, which is exciting for us. And so, yeah, we have some fun stuff coming for you guys. We can't help wait to tease it to you. But yeah, keep your ears peeled. Wanted-
Your ears
I
open,
wanted
your
to say
eyes
ears
peeled.
because of Rabbit, but then I realized that you needed to say, yeah.
We love it. At 6 a.m., we're allowed to say whatever we want. So again, go over to runninrabbit.com and use that code HOPTOBER10 for 10% off your order. We're going to dive into our World Champs debrief before we actually bring you one more interview this week from our Javelina Scholarship winners. This time, Clarivel Vega, who's running the 30K at Javelina. But Worlds happened. It was kind of wild to watch from afar over in Confranc in the Pyrenees in Spain. Again, it's the World Mountain and Trail Running Championships, which is a full mouthful. I think I've been practicing for like 6 years now, and I feel like I finally got it. Americans took home a ton of hardware, so just like some high level, like quick bloopy results things, and then we're gonna get to hear from the Hilly Goat herself from the two races she was in because she doubled down while she was over there. But in the vertical, they kicked things off at the vertical early in the week, which is one of the races again that Hillary raced. Anna Gibson took the bronze. Teams men took the bronze. Hilly got second American. Christian Allen was fourth, and then wanted to give shout outs to the Skimo team. Emma Clark of Canada snagged 10th. Cam Smith snagged 11th. In the short trail, the men's and women's teams both got fourth. Jane Mouse snuck into the top 10, snagging seventh, which is a huge deal. Um, Tove, the Swedish orienteering champion, won by like 34 minutes. It was
Yeah,
wild,
crazy.
like performance of the year status. So I'm sure you've heard on other trail running podcasts about that performance. It was wild. In the long trail side, Jim and Katie both snagged gold, so dual golds at the front of the races. For the Americans, want to give big honorable mentions to Adam Peterman in the top 10, Shaquilano stomping it. I think people can finally stop questioning if she's a mountain runner or not. That was really impressive. Hilly got to do a surprise 80K, which we're going to talk about. And then super special shout outs again to Canadian Jasmine Lowther for getting fourth place. And I think if it had been longer, she might have moved up another spot. And then the team silver across the board for the men's and women's team, which is a big deal. So Hillary is
Hmm.
bringing home some hardware. They finished out the race week because there's four races again: vertical, short, long, and classic up down. Team USA women got second, men got fourth, and they were led by a really gutsy performance from Lauren Gregory in fifth. Anna Gibson was 13th. Courtney Coppinger, I think, finished right behind Anna in 14th. And then Taylor Stack and Mason Copey finished 12th and 14th. Both those guys are super young. They've got many world championships in their future, and that's really exciting. And then even more hardware coming home for the US is that they scored all four distances across the whole week, and Team USA walked away with a week-long bronze, a third place finish
Oh, that's
on the
so
week.
rad.
Yeah, so Team USA, what, like 48 athletes or
That's
something?
huge. This is huge for USA trail running because I feel like normally we're not really on the map
Yeah.
for
No,
these
we're
world champs.
clawing our way up.
It's really cool.
For sure. But again, Hilly was on the ground. She's still, in fact, on the ground in Spain. We knew that she was going for the vertical, right? And then all of a sudden, she gets to double down and race an 80K, which feels more like your traditional wheelhouse, but we'll talk about that. But I want to kick things off by actually like stepping back for a second. Like I know that you've raced globally for a very long time, but I think this is your first Worlds experience, and I'm just like wondering how that experience was, like getting named to Team USA, getting that sweet USA kit drop. I guess you were on a mountain team previous to that, but like what did it feel like this time around?
Yeah, so so I was on a team before when it was also when it was separated, right? It wasn't this whole like trail and mountain running world championships organization and for me, and it was amazing. I was just so honored because it was like kind of a surprise for me to get on the team just at the vertical distance, right? Like that wasn't really a goal of mine this season. It was more of a surprise and like trying to just switch it up, find my love again for the sport and do something different that challenged me. And yeah, it ended up with this amazing opportunity to race among, these giants in the world and across the US. And also, rock a really cool leotard. I finally had the courage to race in that one when
I saw the onesie
when the
come out.
time
That was
came to
great.
it. Well, also because we had to have um mandatory gear for the vertical because it was windy up top, so everyone they made us run with a jacket. So we figured out how to do it. I'm like I didn't want to cover up USA, so like I wore the leotard so I could pin the bib below it. And then we basically taped our jackets like in our little like cross cut of the sports bra. So
Nice.
we could run with that.
I was wondering why Remy had like a giant jacket like tied around his waist. He could have been cold, I guess, but that also makes more sense that there was a mandatory gear element in play.
Yeah, yeah.
And this time around, you didn't go for that early. I feel like traditionally we go to Europe, we're over there for a while, getting acclimated, being on the ground, feeling like we're in the right time zone. You had to run a hilly goat camp, I think, stateside before you took off. So I'm just wondering, how was traveling over to Confranc, making that decision to go a little bit later? And then also, like, what was the energy like on the ground once you did arrive?
Yeah, so it was a bit chaotic, to be honest. A lot of people had some delays getting there. I think mostly athletes arrived early, like maybe Sunday. And that's typically when I would have liked to go. But I mean, I have a lot of experience of traveling for races internationally, so I kind of know what to do once I'm on the ground. But this, like, my flight was actually delayed, so I was supposed to arrive on Monday. Because I was putting on this Hilly Goat camp, which was awesome, and it was a perfect send off. But then, so I left Sunday morning, and my flight was delayed, so I didn't arrive till Tuesday. So I only had like maybe 36 hours to kind of like acclimate and like kind of get on the same time zone for a Thursday morning race. But it helped because it was at 11 a.m. But it's like, I mean, you guys know, it's like as soon as you arrive for race week, it's like very chaotic. Like there's a lot of stuff to do. And then there's meetings with how it worked with USATF. They'd have a debrief meeting at 4 p.m. And then we'd have all of like the team. So the vertical team on Wednesday night would meet at 6 p.m. to kind of go over all of the necessary like checklists and stuff. So we didn't actually find out until 6 p.m. on Wednesday night that we needed a mandatory, gear or like all these specific checklists that we did. What's the game plan for going into the call room? They have to check everyone's, bib and gear. And if you don't have it, then you can't start. This becomes more complicated, obviously, for an ultra. But yeah, so it was a bit interesting. And then, you're in the call room 30 minutes before the race, and you're like a school of fish. You only have like 25 meters to like jog around. So it's like
Mm.
it was pretty hectic. But yeah, I think and then all of this stuff is like I got a call from Anita Ortiz on Saturday night before I left saying that there was probably maybe like a 20% chance that maybe someone was injured and they were looking at the alternate lists and they might need someone else to step up for the 80K distance. So I basically had packed last minute thinking that okay, this is a very slim chance like I might do the 80K, but like I'm just packing just in case. If anything, I can donate my gear to another person because they're going to find another alternate, right? um and then yeah, basically there was just a lot of things going on in my mind. And then before before the race, like, and like even just getting to the start line. So I'd say it was a little bit more chaotic than most races I've been to in Europe.
Yeah, the call room thing is interesting. And I think this is like the world athletics component of it coming in, which it's like we are being not commandeered, but we are these events used to be run by like the World Mountain Running Association, the IAU, ITRA, et cetera, kind of very separate organizations. They've now kind of come in all under one umbrella as of Chiang Mai, the Worlds in Thailand that brought all the teams together for the first time because they used to alternate distances, right? Like it was a vertical one year, and then it was an up down one year, and then it was a 50K one year, and it was an 80K one year. And now it's all together, and World Athletics is now part of that component. And so I'm assuming that is some of that, like a call room is a super weird thing in an ultra, but it's very normal for Lauren Gregory and Anna Gibson, who are track athletes, to be like, oh yeah, we go to the call room before we go out to the track for our race. So I'm assuming there's probably some growing pains in that as well, but I'm glad that you were able to roll with the punches so smoothly.
And they were really, I mean, they were definitely really strict with the Federation gear. So it was like even if you didn't show up in and obviously we had like a super cool gear drop. It was great. Like we got like a lot of stuff. You could still wear your shoes, but even if you didn't wear like the warm-ups or like you wore your favorite puffy jacket over because it's quite cold at the beginning of these races,
Mm.
like your favorite puffy jacket over the thing, if you didn't have the logo taped or it wasn't Federation gear for whoever country that you're with, they were not letting people start even in the call room. So they were like, I think I don't know who, but there were actually, I think at least several were disqualified on in the uphill race. And then there's definitely some people who weren't allowed to start on various teams in the ultra marathon as well on the long
Mm.
trail.
Interesting. And again, like that is very indicative of like world athletics and the Olympic movement, in which like you can't run, like athletes can't say that they run for, a non-federation brand within a like it's like a blackout period. It's like 40 days or
Right.
something. It's both pre-Olympics, during Olympics, and immediately post-Olympics. And so all that content has to be made and approved of ahead of time. It's like it's actually a very like stressful thing, I think, for a lot of athletes, particularly athletes that are not managed by like a bigger PR firm. So it's kind of crazy just to throw that at trail and be like, oh yeah, we forgot to tell you about duct tape. We forgot to tell you about covering all these logos. So
Mhm.
that's we'll continue to see kind of the debrief of that, I think, going forward, and hopefully it'll feel smoother for next worlds, which are in Cape Town in 2027. But yeah, that is,
Mm.
I was gonna say that's very normal in like the Olympic sport side of things, but that's very unusual in trail. So big adjustments to be made. I guess kind of going back to racing and specifically starting with the vertical, we talk a lot about like debriefing a race and you can pick a lot apart when you're racing for 18 to 40 hours. It's a little bit different when you're racing for like an hour, a singular hour. And so I'm just wondering, obviously into the call room, things are chaotic. You guys are running around in a tiny little space. Then you guys go to start this thing and it's a drag race to like a pinched single track. I'm just like wondering what that experience was like. Did you have a strategy going into a very different format race? How did that all play out?
Yeah, I think a mantra from mine at the very beginning of this thing was just control what I could control because I like it just and like break it into small chunks because like that was just how I needed to just, get to Barcelona and then get to Confront. And then I got to see the start of the race, like on my shakeout run, just like completely delusional, but at least I remembered part of it. And this hard left-hand turn, which was like a very pinched turn with like stairs and loose baby head rocks. Like it was carnage. And like people were like pushing each other, falling over. Like it was like I think maybe I forget how many people, 150 people in this uphill race, and then just going down just a single track and where you literally can't pass. And so basically my mentality, and also like at the top, you have one representative from each country or ish, in the front two rows, and then you line up kind of behind them, but like everyone just like packed in, so it kind of wasn't like that. So we were like just trying not to, it's kind of just an exaggerated start of UTMB, but people were way more aggressive. And so I just kind of just had to kind of take it like that. I was just really just practicing staying calm and like just executing my race. I think really the hardest part here is because you have a half mile on a road before it goes into single track, but you can really blow your race. Like the people would start so fast. And if you're climbing for an hour and it's really steep, like there's definitely a lot of time for fading. So I think I had that in like back in my just the back of my mind. But it was actually really cool because me, Sydney, and Jess were all like really close together. So I felt like we could really work together and like be a team. And like when Sydney would get pushed back by this girl, it's like, who'd be like exchange a little bit of words of encouragement. And, we were only a couple switchbacks apart. So we kind of see each other the whole time, which is really cool. But I think like maybe looking back would have like maybe tried to push us to the front further because I think we could have like kicked off a few more places. But yeah, like I think just from my understanding of the course, like I hadn't seen the whole course, but it's fairly runnable. And there's some very flat balcony sections. In fact, there's even like one downhill section on the course, but
Broken Arrow is
very
perfect prep
runnable.
then.
I know. Well, we didn't do the broken arrow this year, but like the full course, but like um I have done that. So yes, yeah. Like I know there can be downhill in a VK, but yeah, like it was just different. So I was really actually pleased that like I think my training really worked well, like incorporating more track and stuff like this. But like honestly, it was just so fun to like race around you. It's like that's like what I was focusing on is like just focus on who's ahead of you, how many can you reel in, how many can you tick off, and like I honestly just didn't like care what I didn't know what place I was at, but then it's just like working with the race around you and then staying calm in that moment and trying not to get too yeah, like too worked up and use extra energy. I do feel like at the very beginning of the race, I wasn't like really pushing that hard just because like it bottlenecked so quickly, but maybe that was a good thing. So you can kind of move up later. But um, yeah, it's insane to put that many people on a single track with not that much room to spread out.
Yeah, a half
So
mile into a
yeah.
pinch sounds awful. And like It did not play out this way in the vertical because they did have a separate start for the men and the women, but like I saw the short trail start and I saw like early miles of the short trail race and it was like men legit like pushing like Ikram like out of the way and I was like girls fighting for a top 10 and you're like shoving her out of the way. Like that's like not cool. So again, there are things to be worked on, but I'm really happy that you guys had a clean start, a women's only start, because it sounds like it was chaotic enough as is. I guess
Yeah.
kind of reflecting on the getting to the top of the climb, finishing, you come in second American, close behind you, you've got Sydney and Jess. You're in the top 30 in the world in the vertical. I'm just wondering, going in, kind of feeling like it was a surprise to make the team. Like, how did it feel actually? Making it to the top of the climb and getting the world's vertical done.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I was so happy. I mean, that last bit was like, so I like reeled in some people and like, Sydney was in that group. And then on the last section was like the steepest. So that's where you actually do some hiking. So that was pretty fun, but I was definitely hurting really good. I know. Mike got some good photos of all of us. Um, but and the atmosphere was just so good. You just had to like kind of like zone it out and just like push through. It was so electric. But yeah, I mean, I'm just really proud. I mean, yeah, making the world's team was a surprise, I think, for me, for I think a lot of people who have maybe known me more of just like as an ultra runner. But I know that I've had some speed and I love to climb. So I think it wasn't a total surprise, but it was awesome to be like a solid scoring part of the team. And like I said, like work all of us together. That was like really cool to turn around and just like give everyone a hug when they crossed the finish line. Um, yeah, and then just being reunited with so many different people from across the world. And yeah, it's just like it's so cool also just to be the first race. I mean, I my whole plan for the weekend was like to be the first one and then like cheer my face off for the rest. But then I told myself like I basically then had to make a decision about the 80K. But basically I was full like focused on this race that I had been training for months. And I just felt like I honestly didn't really know where I'd stack up, but I think I like did everything I could in my control to have the best race. So I just felt really proud. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
like and so proud of Anna who got third. Like that was so cool hearing that news at the end.
It's always one of those things where it's
Yeah.
like never surprised by Anna, always impressed by Anna. It was pretty cool to
Hmm.
see her in a medal spot. And I know Lauren was very close and the up down was in a pretty epic battle for kind of the third, fourth, fifth spot. So we got these young guns that are real fast. But actually I think it's curious that you heard a little bit before you traveled that like, hey, someone might not be starting the 80K team. We're looking at our options. Like I was like, oh my goodness, did Hillary travel over there and like not have like poles or like not have something that she would need for the 80K? So I guess, you know, we actually texted you because I had heard from someone else that you were likely going to be starting the 80K. For those who don't know, Jen Lichter, who I think we were all really excited to see make her long trail debut at Worlds, was previewing the course and took a bit of a fall and strained her hamstring. So she wasn't going to be able to race. You can start six, you score three. It's important to start a full team because an 80K is a long way to go and you don't know what's going to happen out there. But I guess what is like, I guess Saturday, that probably came as a shock. You like do pack for it, but tell us a little bit about like hearing that news and getting into the mindset maybe of like, yeah, I guess I can do an 80K.
Yeah, so thankfully they told me before so I could actually like at least come a little bit prepared. But to be honest, like I had been trained so hard for the vertical and I didn't want to stress about something else. So I honestly just kind of put it out of my mind. And I told myself that I wasn't going to actually think about it and like until I had more information. And if Jen wasn't actually going to, and I didn't really know, we didn't know it was, I mean, I found out, but it was like, we didn't, like, that wasn't public knowledge yet of like who it was, right? Just to kind of protect her and like let her take her time deciding. And so I told myself that like I needed more information if she was actually in or out. Because at this point, it seemed like fairly unlikely. So I was told myself I wasn't allowed to think about it until after the vertical race which I think is really good because I didn't want to have that extra stress. Like I
Mhm.
didn't want to like hold anything back in the vertical or, like I just didn't want to deal with that. And it was actually quite hard because the Wednesday before the race, before the vertical, I was informed that Jen, in fact, was pulling out and that like if I wanted to race, then I could. And again, I just like that's a lot to throw at someone. And then the morning of the 80K, of course, the morning of the vertical, like, it's going around, everyone's like excited. And then they're asking me literally on the start, like in the call room, like, hey, are you going to run the 80K? And I'm like,
Let me finish
don't
this
ask,
first.
don't. I know. I'm like, please, like, I said it nicely, but I'm like, we're not going to talk about that until after I'm finished with this race. Like, I'm really focused on this race. And then, like, I'm about to go smash it. And then I will take some time to think about it. So, like, that mentality, I think, really helped. So I could just, like, again, focus on one thing at a time, like small
Mhm.
chunks. And then, even within the vertical race itself, like, I wasn't even thinking about it. I was just thinking about, like, the girl in front of me and like, Pac-Man, like try to eat them up. And so that was really cool. Because I felt like I was kind of in a flow state with that mentally. And then honestly, I had a hard time like really deciding. I think I had to, and then at the after everything, and then I decided, okay, like now I get to like I went for a walk just by myself, like after everything. I was like writing a to-do pros and cons list in my head. And but really the biggest thing for my decision in doing the race was, did I want to do it? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's one thing to step up for the team, and definitely felt that like it's a great opportunity, like it's an amazing way to participate in kind of like a low pressure situation, but like I can't would get hard because I've run in the Pyrenees before. I've done a lot of sky races here. They are incredibly brutal. They're incredibly technical. And if you don't want to be there, they will eat you up and spit you out. So basically at the end of that little walk, I decided that, yeah, I want to give it a go. And for no other reason that I want to see if I can do this. And it was scary because I didn't train for an 80K. The longest run that I have been on in the past 3.5 months has been 20 miles, and it's been on road. So, yeah. But of course, I have lots of experience with it. But, it's also a world championship race. So it was kind of a cool way to be like, okay, well,
Here's
accept that you're not
the lowest stress world championship race ever. And for context for people too, when it comes to like alternates, so these like all the teams have to be submitted by like a certain day in August, and that includes your potential. I think you are allowed a little bit of an alternate list. So someone like Jeff Colt, for example, I think was a men's long trail alternate. Um, like they could in theory submit his name to that list, but when they go like race week of, if someone needs to step down, they can't just like pull a rando who happens to be in Europe. Someone like Erin Clark, for example, who was over there like post CCC training and hanging out with her fiance Adam Peterman. She could not run Worlds because she was not on the submitted list of athletes. So all of a sudden it's like Hillary, Helen Mino, Faulkner. Like it's like there are a few athletes on the team who in theory could double or could do the long trail instead or whatever. So it's like that is that is the reality of what you're working within too. And so it's not easy for teams to all of a sudden find subs because they have to be from this like submitted list, the submitted roster that went in to the World Athletics, World Mountain and Trail Running World Championships thing. So
Mhm. I
some
was gonna
context
say,
for it.
but can you also pick from the other teams? Is that what you're
Yes.
saying?
So
Yeah. Okay.
if they were submitted as a Team USA athlete for
Nice.
Worlds,
Hmm.
they could then say, and it mostly only makes sense to pull from like the vertical or the classic in that sense, but then you have to have an ultra runner who happens to be on one of those teams
Hmm.
in a way, right? So it's like they could have asked a number of people to step up to the short, for example, from the vertical or from the classic, more likely than vertical to 80K. It's generally a little bit more of a different athlete, but not impossible. You probably could have thrown Katie Scheid into the vertical and she probably would have had a great day. But it's like that there is that tricky component in which you have to be from the official list of submitted roster athletes. And because we're traveling all the way from the US to Worlds, it's you're not likely to have alternates travel with you. Versus like if you were on the Italian team and you needed a sub, it's a lot easier to have like, oh yeah, we formally submitted alternates when we submitted our team and we can put them on a train and they'll be here tomorrow type of thing. Like the cost is low, the travel factor is low, you're in the right time zone. That's very different than the US, Canada, Asia, Uganda, Kenya, etc., getting athletes over to Worlds all of a
Hmm.
sudden.
Hmm.
So that's like, it is kind of an interesting situation. I guess you're right. We kind of reflected on this being in your wheelhouse, but not what you've been training for. The gun goes off. You've told yourself this is the lowest stress 80K world championship race ever because the expectations are you're doing the thing and you're doing it for team, but it's still 51 miles with 18,000 feet of climbing through some very technical terrain. So just like walk us through like, you know, a day in the Pyrenees.
God, yeah. Um, I think it was good going in naive because, like, oh gosh, like the mountains, I cannot describe how technical they are. Like to describe it as a trail would be an overstatement. Like there was a lot of it where it was not trail, and all I could do was just laugh because at the ridiculousness of this, and then just be in awe of how fast some of these times were at this race. But I mean, there's even like a class two ridge line. So like a super interesting route and super interesting trails. But yeah, I basically the other thing was is that the cutoffs were actually fairly aggressive
They
because
were
being a
really
trail,
aggressive. Like it was
yeah.
just for everyone's kind of point of mind. It was a 15-hour cutoff as well. And initially going in, I think the top men and top women ran a little bit faster than we thought they might. I thought that the
Mm,
men were going to be closer to Katie's time, for example, and that Katie'd be like another, hour back from that. So they ran a little bit faster, but like the cutoffs were, I mean, 8 hours, I think, for the 45K, which is insane. Like Helen had a bad day, her knee was bothering her, and she's like, somehow made the cutoff. Didn't expect that to happen. And then in the
yeah.
80K, it was that the cutoffs seemed really aggressive. And we actually, as like the PTRA, were kind of worried that a 15-hour cutoff would cut off a lot of teams from smaller nations that aren't as strong in this who are going to get rocked by a technical 80K course. So I'm sorry, I digress. But yes, the cutoffs were a
No,
freaking issue.
this is important because and being
Hmm.
out there like it was, and I think it did. I think all in all there was around close to 200 starters, 40 of which got timed out,
Hmm.
and then another maybe
Hmm.
20 or so DNF'd.
Oh, wow.
And so I think there was
That's
about
a lot.
130, yeah, there's 130 finishers. So I think exactly like Corinne said, that happened. And so I finished in like 13 and a half hours, and I felt like I was never like bombing anything. I was just like going solid. I was just kind of in like diesel mode all day, but like that was my goal of literally like digestible chunks. I was literally breaking up the race an hour at a time. I was doing little like runner math in my head to figure out like the minimum, that like the paces and the miles that have to like tick off to reach the cutoffs. And so I was well ahead of it, but that was my race strategy, like coming into this race completely blind, not really knowing, only having like the race profile and knowing like kind of where the next climbs and descents were. But just because of the technicality, that every descent was incredibly technical aside from the last descent. And so those took a lot of time, just to be, and I had not much downhill in my legs. So I actually couldn't risk going super fast on the downhills just so that I could have quads, to run for the rest of the day. Um, but this I used it as an opportunity to just practice a lot of mindset that I've been working on recently, and that's really the main reason why I wanted to do this thing. Is because I feel like I've been having like some mental blocks around it. And this is one of the
Hmm.
harder 80K courses that I've actually run, and one of the most technical. And yeah, I felt like I was just fluid and happy and smiling all day, and um, smiling at just how messed up some of the trails were. Like literally, that's all I could do. I shared the room with Lindsay Allison, and she was telling me about some of the trails. And I was just like, afterwards, like in our room later, we stayed up till like 2 a.m. talking about how messed up some of the trails were. So, but it was, yeah, it was overall, I think just the mindset of just like one step at a time, one climb at a time, honestly, like a handful of miles at a time, to reach the different cutoffs. And like, we had the crew from, the volunteers that came out with USATF, and they made it it was so fun to see them at the different aid stations. And um, yeah, like I'm really proud of my body for being able to get through such a burly race and, come out relatively unscathed. Like, yeah, it was a really like some of the most beautiful mountains I've ever seen. Like the Pyrenees are just wild. There's really no other way to describe them. Like they're savage and like um they're just totally different than the Alps. And yeah, it was insane that was the world and trail running mountain. I can't say it, Corinne. World Trail
World
and Mountain Running
Mountain and
Championships.
yeah, World Mountain and Trail Running Championships.
Okay, we got it. But like, because it felt like more like sky running. It felt like a sky running race. And like from like the vertical to the classic, it was way less technical than the short and long. But yeah, overall, just like really pleased with just the mindset and my leggies for taking me through.
Yeah, a little thank you body is always good.
Mhm.
Oh,
A
and
little thank you
definitely because
body.
like I wanted to like cheer my face off. So I definitely got to do that on Sunday. But like I was a little sore, but I was like hobbling around trying to like cheer on the classic. Thankfully it was really close to Confront, so I didn't have to hike that much. But so I got in the cheering that I came there to do.
Like that's all I wanted. Um,
Yeah.
and I guess like unless Keely, you have something specific, I just wanted to like you're still in Spain. I'm hoping that you're soaking up some much needed R&R.
Oh yeah. Um, I've honestly been looking forward to off season for a long time. So here's the thing, as I even brought my bike to Spain because I was thinking about like, doing a cool little bike ride after because, you're not going to have much recovery after the vertical. But so now I have my bike and I don't even know if I'm going to unpack it because I have fully committed to taking time off of running and just relaxing and having an off season. And there's like no better way to do it than in Spain. And yeah, the reason I'm staying here actually is because I have a little thing in London. So I didn't want to go home and then come back again. So I'm staying and then
Mhm.
going to London, doing this little work thing, and then flying home. But I'm not running. I'm eating tapas. I'm sleeping till, well, I'm still getting up early, but then I'm going back to bed. And then yeah, just trying to rest because I was contemplating a few other races this season, but nope, not anymore after this surprise 80K.
That's great. I think that's really, really important to recognize that you do need to say thank you, body, and
Mhm.
take some time off.
Yeah, I feel like I've been in that mode lately. Like I'm not a skier at all, and I don't ever take an off season in the winter because Portland you can run year round. And so lately, like I started running after states, and then my body was kind of like no. And so then I've just been like, cool, I'm in my bike off season. Like take a month off running, and now I'm
Nice.
just like biking and doing whatever I want. And I'm like, I'll run when the seasons change. But
I
Hilly,
like
I had
that.
one more
Yeah.
question for you. Obviously, you've been to world champs before they were combined. What were some of the like biggest differences you noticed? Obviously, there's probably many,
Hmm.
but like what were some of the biggest differences you noticed from back when you were on the team before? And then how was the drug testing?
I was just about to say that. Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, Keely. So I think just some of the stuff we touched on earlier is just like this, like with World Athletics, like the strictness with the gear and like the call rooms and kind of just the overall organization. I think that's all like a good thing because it makes it feel a lot more official, right? And then the biggest difference is that I think like when we were previously on these teams and it wasn't a part of all this, we got like $200. But this time they paid for, our hotel and they like got us over here with flights and stuff. So they had more of a budget. Those I think were the main differences. And then definitely that was also something I noticed was the drug testing. So you could either be randomly selected for drug testing at the top, but you had to give like all of your credentials to your volunteer that was with your team. And then obviously the top three and the podium people, they got pulled aside for that would accompany them like from the time they finished the race until they were like, well, for the vertical, brought down the mountain and then like back to the finishing chute and
Mm,
drug tested. So
got it.
it felt a lot more just more organized and official in that sense.
Mm,
And again, that was required for the podium people, but also some just random
mm,
drug
cool.
selection as well. I think Cam got randomly drug selected too, and he finished 11th in the
Got
vertical.
it. Nice.
Yeah,
That's good to hear.
they had some pre-event. Well, technically it's considered in competition testing if you're tested 24 to 20 24 pre-race, 24 post-race. That all falls into the in competition window. So I think like Francesco got tested, I think he had a blood draw, like a WADA blood draw ahead of the long trail day. So it's like
Hmm.
they were
That's cool.
definitely there testing, and it's again, this is encouraging. One of the benefits of World Athletics coming in is that we might actually be able to put together like an out of competition drug testing pool because they would be the responsible party in helping to subsidize it. And then it'd be pushed through your
Hmm.
national federation, i.e., for the US, it'd be USA Track and Field. Like countries would then be like kind of considered more a normal part of their national running federation, which is good. But it's also the one part that's not good is that like why was China absent from this? And it's because China still since 2021, when they had that horrible accident where 20 or 21 people died
Mm,
in a race that had inclement weather and mandatory gear was not enough basically. That for federation based athletics, they do not have approval for ultra and trail because it's deemed dangerous.
mm,
And so, um, at a world championship level, you can't compete as an independent when World Athletics is involved, i.e., like some of the Chinese athletes were able to compete in like the Pacific Championships this past fall. I know Fu Zhao was able to race there, for example, but that was a championship event where they were allowed to race as like individuals or independent individuals. And so they were allowed to do that versus here you are required to race with your federation. And China currently does not allow for sanctioned ultra distance events at the federation level.
mm,
So like notably absent from this event was like Yao Miao, Fu
mhm.
Zhaozhang,
Hmm.
Xin Jingshen. So people that we want to see at the world championship level, obviously. And so those are things that I hope get to change between now and Cape Town and between now and any sort of Olympic movement for trail and ultra running. We need those athletes to be represented at the highest level as well.
Mm.
Okay, we digress. I guess that means it's time for some meat and potatoes. Today we've got a very special treat. As many of you who listened to the last episode, we had Daisy Martinez on. This week we're joined by another Trail Society slash Rabbit scholarship athlete. We'll be headed to Javelina, and that's Clarivel Vega. She's a first generation Latina, a lifelong runner, and an important member of her running community through Keep Running Santa Ana, where she finds joy bringing new runners into the sport. Clarivel received our Trail Society Scholarship supported by Rabbit and will be running the 30K night race at Javelina in just a few weeks. And we are excited for her to share her story with us here. So I'll step right out of the way and we'll dive into our interview.
Hi, everyone. So, my name is Clarivel Vega. I am a local runner here to Orange County. So, I'm from California, but I've actually been running for a pretty long time, probably since elementary school, honestly, since I could remember, but it's primarily been road running. So, excited for this new journey with trail running, but that's kind of it.
Yeah, we're excited to be part of your trail running journey as well. And actually, talking about elementary school, it's kind of where I wanted to start this conversation. I know that running has been part of basically your whole life from the earliest of days as an elementary school kid. You started racing more in middle school and high school, and then ultimately ran in college. And I would
Mhm.
just like to hear more about that journey of running, like why running was important to you and what role it played in your life, particularly as a kid, even before you went to college?
hmm Yeah, so it's kind of crazy because now I still work in kind of the children's space a little bit, but in a different capacity. But it's really interesting how the basics of human nature and human behavior is really kind of how it shows. So as a kid, I was a middle child, so I believe in middle child syndrome. So I always had the older sibling that was like perfect and just did everything, and then the younger one that got most of the attention. So honestly, in elementary school, I kind of just felt like a black sheep of the family. So the way I would kind of cope with feelings or just impulses was to run. So I remember during recess, because when I first started running, it was literally during recess, and it was just I would run a lap around the field just 'cause. And kids were like, "Why are you running?" I'm like, "I don't know, I just feel like running." And then it progressed to like our fifth year or fifth when you're in fifth grade and you do the like physical activity, test or whatever. I was kind of like, oh, I really want to do good. I really want to beat these boys. So I was really competitive from early on. And I just remember wanting, again, to do really well. And I'm like, I love this. I love the feeling I get because, and now with a lot of different runners, you pop in some music, you pop in a podcast and run and kind of get lost in the sauce. But for me, it was actually I would just run and then my mind would go blank, and so I would just kind of run and run. And then, a few bumps in the road where, again, how I grew up being, from a Latino family, my goal or my role in the family changed where they're like, okay, well, you have to take care of your younger sister. So for middle school, I was only allowed to run, I believe it was 1 year, and then they kind of pulled me out. They're like, no, you can't do sports. And so I was kind of like, oh, come on, like I like it and I want to do it. So I remember I was exposed to Students Run LA, which was a really good organization here in Southern California that exposes running to different groups around Southern California, primarily a lot of middle and high school students. And so they'll sponsor kids to go to races like LA Marathon. I believe it's called the Friendship 30K out in LA. So I was actually able to do that for a year. And so that was really fun because I got to go out and do something that, again, my parents never kind of took us to, all these fun stuff. So I'm like, oh, this is fun. Like I go on a bus and run with my friends. Like what else could I ask for? And then kind of leading up to high school again, same thing. I was just a little oddball. I felt like an oddball both in school, at home. So I was like, well, this is my little niche and I feel comfortable here and I like it here. And, I showed promise. My coaches were like, yeah, you just gotta get disciplined. You gotta focus and like you'll be really good. And I'm like, okay. And again, being a kid, being a teenager, I'm like, so I would run and now that's kind of one of the things I look back where I'm like, man, if I really kind of had a different mindset and really focus, oh, like the opportunities, who knows. But regardless, I still, again, just continued to run. And eventually what ended up happening is, um, again, same thing with this like dynamic at home where I didn't like where I was, mentally and emotionally within my family mix. So I was just like, hey, mom and dad, I'm leaving for college in 2 weeks to San Francisco. That's 400 miles away. And they kind of were like, wait, what? They had no clue I applied to schools out of state, like far away until literally right before. And I'm like, yeah, sorry, but I'm going. And so, yeah, I was still underage. I was still 17. So when I got to college and I was able to run for the school, they were like, oh, you have to get your parents' signatures for stuff because you're still underage. And I was like, oh, no. Like, well, I don't know how they feel about running still. So thankfully, they were kind of like, well, you're not here, so we can't really control you or like have this on you. But once I got into college, I was just the world was amazing, the running world. We were able to travel to different states, and this was I believe at the time they were Division 2 school. So it was a very small program, but again, we were able to go to different colleges, different schools, see different things. And I remember one of my favorite yet more complicated races was running in Wisconsin, and it was 19 degrees and the ground was frozen. I'm like, what is this? I've never ran in this weather, coming from SoCal. That's something you don't typically get exposed to. So it was just really awesome to experience different things, have that college feel of, being with my roommates slash my teammates slash my coworkers, because in athletics, thankfully the coach was really like, okay, well, I got you a job, doing the audio for this volleyball game, for this basketball game. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And now I'm like, man, that was, the college student living the dream, working on campus and running and just waking up going to class. But again, running was a job still, and we still had to focus. And our coach was kind of a few decades behind in terms of his thought process, where he really controlled what we ate. And as a female, he'd always make those comments of like, hey, you're looking flabby, or you're putting on some weight, like we need to get you in shape. And at the time I was very naive, very like, "Oh, okay, sure, I won't eat fries with my burger or something." Now looking back, I'm like, oh, well, that was a little bit, obviously back in the years prior, but everything you experience and you learn, that's what makes you into what you are now, or what you preach, or what you're hoping to pass on to other people.
Yeah, we've had a lot of like a lot of college conversations like that in which we're
Mhm.
like it was a rarity, it seemed, for coaches to, and still is. It
Mhm.
feels like in a lot of programs for coaches to not live in that very old school mindset and or, in a lot of ways be abusive towards
Mhm.
their athletes. And I guess I'm wondering I know you took a break from running out of
Mhm.
college. Was it due to feeling burnt out on running, or was it more just like needing a reprieve slash like graduating college and becoming more or less like an independent adult at that point and running needing to take a backseat?
I think it was definitely a lot more was because of everything we went through as athletes with that particular coach. I'm not gonna lie. And then, the reality hit where now I was commuting to school. Just as I did transfer back down south, my mom got sick, and so I needed to be around more. So then I transferred over to Cal State Long Beach, and that's where kind of I finished out my years. But a lot of it was like I was kind of like, no, running is like right now, it brings me back memories of like, I don't want to be watched, or I don't want to
Mm.
have this pressure of, expected to perform at this level, which, it comes with the territory when you run collegiately or professionally. But also at the time, I didn't have the tools that I have now, where it's, therapy or other teammates. Yeah, we talked about, how are you feeling? But we didn't know what to name these feelings or anything. We're all still kids, to be quite honest.
Yeah, you think at 18 or 19 or 20, you're like, you know everything and you're such an adult. And now looking back, I know personally, I'm like, oh, I thought I knew a lot and I knew nothing. Like I
Yeah.
know so much more now than I did then. And maybe I'll feel the same way 15
Mhm.
years from now. I was, when I first, met you, first like learned a little bit about you, one thing that stood out is this idea of kind of like chosen family as
Mhm.
well. And it feels like post collegiately being back in Santa Ana, finding, KRSA, which is Keep
Mhm.
Runnin Santa Ana.
Mhm.
In my mind, that really feels like your chosen family. Like we all have our family, but we all have our chosen family. I'm just like wondering how it felt to find this run club and to maybe feel reinvigorated in your relationship with running because they do seem like a really incredible group of humans.
Oh yeah, 100%. So once I took my break, I would sporadically, I'm like, I'm gonna sign up for a half marathon, and then I would go. But again, I would go about it all the wrong ways. But once I came across Keep Running Santa Ana, and the funny thing is, when I first started sharing their posts, I was never at their meetups, because at the time I worked Thursday nights, which is when they would run. But I remember I'd always share their posts. I'm like, oh, everybody, just because I knew I still had running friends in the community, or within Santa Ana. And I remember the founder, Aaron Garcia, he was like, "Hey, so I see you sharing so much about us, but I've never met you. Like, are you planning to come out?" And I'm like, "Yes, I promise. I just like my work schedule right now doesn't, go well with the running schedule." But eventually, literally, I think right after their year anniversary, I started coming out. And it was just ever since then, I never stopped going. And so I was just constantly there. And I love the feel of there. You could tell there was some seasoned runners and then some newer runners at the time. It was like right after COVID. And so I've always thought of myself as like a natural leader. And I'm always like, yeah, like, anything I can, like I had this experience, like, can I share this with you? If of course, if it's like mutual and reciprocal. So a lot of the runners are like, hey, like I know you ran before, like, what did you do? And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is great. And then it started, the ball started rolling. And then I think within, I want to say after a year, the founder was like, hey, I just want to ask you, are you interested in being a captain? Like you're very integral in this community. You're always there, someone we can rely on. I'm like, yeah, of course. So ever since then, I just started being a part of it. And it's like, okay, what can we do? And, who our community is. And, we are predominantly Latinos. And especially with right now, what's going on, in our political climate, it's really hard, especially our run club, because they are targeting our city.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how can we make this safe for our runners to just run? And it's a double-edged sword because we do have, all walks of life of individuals that come by. But again, our run club is Keep Running Santa Ana, which is Santa Ana. And that's ultimately what in my mind, I'm like, if my, hermano is here running, it's for a reason, and it's because they live close by, they have some tie to the city. So our goal, or my goal at least, is to do something positive within the city. But finding them, I've found like lifelong friends. And like you said, it's a chosen family. My family was never there to watch me run. Funny story is we just did the Bimbo 10K 5K yesterday, and that was the first time they all attended a running event of mine.
Wow.
So I actually got them to go, which is like, again, this has been 25 years in the making, so they're finally there. Few bumps, but it's okay. And so to me, I was just like, man, like I was able to introduce them to my running family, and they were like, wow, a lot of people. Or there's a lot of people. I'm like, yeah, you guys don't understand. Like this is a whole world within a world, and it's something you can't describe into words, but yeah, so it's definitely been, finding lifelong friends, chosen family that I continually, it's all free, all my free time. And, sometimes I wish I could tell people, I'm like, I don't get paid for this, but I want to do this. So again, that's one of the driving forces that I think a lot of us in the running community is like, none of us get paid to this. Running is expensive, but we're here and we're here to show up and show out.
That's
Yeah.
really special. It sounds like you have such a good community down there.
Mhm.
Coming from a background in running, obviously you've been running your entire life, so you've met a lot of people in the running space. Was there ever a time where you felt like you didn't belong in the space or had any trouble finding community?
I definitely think it was in that interim of, leaving the collegiate world and then before I found a running club, because at the time, um, I had gone to another run club local, but it was in Los Angeles. There's really not much else. And I mean, I don't want to say back then because it wasn't that long ago, but run clubs weren't a thing, like growing up, you had to pay to be in certain clubs. They were membership clubs. And then now with this new trend of all these run clubs, it's like, it's great. It's free. People can join. So I definitely think that interim of like, I'm not at the collegiate level or I'm not this fast, so I don't know where I fall into now. And then again, for the most part, I've always ran by myself. So I would run here and there, but I also didn't feel safe just because of, being a female, being a runner, you don't always have that comfort. So I think during that time it was definitely a hard time.
Yeah, and I'm kind of wondering now, before we dive into some trail specific stuff, I'm wondering, now you do have this big community, a big community of mostly like other Latino runners, which is really exciting. And I'm wondering what it means to take up space in the sport. And I think there's a safety component of that for sure, particularly in California and in Southern California right now. So I'm wondering from your perspective, how, and maybe that is the run club environment, but what does it mean to take up space in the sport?
Oh my gosh, it's that's what we need to do is we need to and again it's hard because we want to, and me myself, I'm speaking for myself, but you want to take space, but then again you look at the financial component. It's
Yeah.
getting, exceptionally expensive. But I think if you can and you're able to, having space is just crucial. Especially I remember vividly I did a half marathon out in Nashville. And my goal after a few years of getting back in the scene was like, okay, I want to travel and run at the same time. So I'm going to do destination running. And so I remember running this race and I'm like, wow, I kind of am the only brown person here right now. So it was very daunting because I come from Southern California. And I think Daisy mentioned it in in your podcast where, it is a very dense population here, but once you get out, few and far between where you see someone that you can kind of connect with visually. And I think growing up, especially when you're a kid, you look up to what you see and what you identify with the most at that time. So if it's a brown woman, female, um, I see myself in that. Or I remember growing up, my idol was Ana Guevara, which she was a 400-meter runner for Mexico, and she was amazing. And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna be just like her. And I remember idolizing her. And I'm like, now when I see again people from my run club, no matter their age, we have all ages. We have youngsters, and then we have one of our, she is phenomenal. She is 52 years old, and she is running faster than some of these guys out there. She qualified for her Boston again, and I'm like, man, if I could only run as, she's running like 3:24 marathons. I'm like, at that
Wow.
age, I was like, that's amazing. And I wish, I can, whatever my body's capable of letting me do up to that age or even longer. And it's crazy, you look at all these indigenous groups, the Raramuri women and tribes where, this is their livelihood. This is what they do to survive. So it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, running can be this big, I think, cultural, not phenomenon, but this like cultural touch point
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a question for you, kind of
Yeah.
building into the trail a little bit. Obviously, you've done a lot of road racing,
Mm-hmm.
and Javelina's a big trail race. It's cool. You're gonna love it. Festival atmosphere. It's amazing. But I'm really curious what and where trail plays a role into your running history or your current running experience, because I know personally I'm intimidated by road running, but trail makes me feel peaceful and at home and grounded. So what is trail for you in this moment?
So in this moment, and like I mentioned, I've never ran a trail run. So this is going to be my first trail run, which I'm super excited. It's actually Javelina because I hear that's, such a great experience. But honestly, I'm just excited to dive into this world of unknown because the only concept of trail running I had, to be honest, and this might be comical, but was the Barkley marathons. And so at first I was like, man, these trail runs are pretty intense. Like no watch, no like like nothing. And then I come to find out, no, that's just that one. That's very intense. So then once I started kind of diving into like, oh, this is pretty cool. I love nature. I love being outdoors, and it's kind of exactly that. It's like you are finding a home within yourself, and you're using all these external resources to, I'm like, okay, well, pass this way, and everything's marked and things like that. But I love, like, everybody looks to me for the directional person for anything. So I'm always like, when I'm hiking or when I'm doing something, I'm like, okay, well, I already passed that tree, or this tree looks a little different than that one. So I just always, again, and I don't know if it's just my mind and my way of thinking, but I always think of these random thoughts. But again, when I was able to help or crew for my friend Daisy for her ultra, she was like, yeah, you're going through the trail, but it starts to look the same, and then you're like, wait, which way did I go? Because hers was a little loopy, so there was a couple points where I guess it intersected within itself, which was interesting. So she's like, yeah, she's like, for a second I was like, wait, I did not need to go that way. So she would have to go back. And so I'm like, okay, this is interesting. So I think it's a challenge, I'm looking for, where again, road racing is ultimately, it's always about time, regardless of what level you're at. You're always like, okay, well, I did this at my 10K, so I should be doing this at the next one. And I feel like trails is different. It's, yeah, you look at the time, but essentially what you're looking at is the terrain and how well you're gonna put together your nutrition. And it's almost like a full game plan versus just, and again, not to talk down about road racing. I mean, that's all I've done. But road racing's pretty, like, that's the course. You already know it's like paved roads, and there's water stations here, and that's it. And for a trail, I feel like it's more technical, where it's like, okay, well, do I need these type of shoes? And, am I running through dirt? Am I running through sand? Or is there a water feature, a river? So, it gets a little more intense.
Yeah, but welcome because you get to walk the uphills. Like time doesn't matter, pace
Yeah.
doesn't matter. Like we're happy to indoctrinate you into the trail space of being much more chill. But speaking to challenge and resilience and all these things that trail and then ultra running, another like layer of trail
Mhm.
really demands of us. A layer of your story is actually living with chronic illness. In 2013, you had emergency surgery. You were ultimately diagnosed with IBS. It still greatly impacts
Mhm.
your life, your running journey. And I'm wondering if we can just talk about that a little bit, how it's impacted your running, but maybe also how the tools that you've learned through running has given you skills to cope and handle living with a chronic illness.
hmm No, and the best way I describe it to people, so um, what they ended up doing is they removed my gallbladder, and then doctors were like, oh, you should be fine. You should live normally. After a couple months, everything will resolve. I ended up developing post-cholecystectomy syndrome. So it means that you basically, it's not normal and it's not not functional. And so now what's happened is it's just a constant, think of like mild to moderate to severe food poisoning every day of your life.
No,
And
thank you.
yeah, and so some people, like, they do well with it. They take some antacids and they're okay, or antidiarrheals and they're okay. Unfortunately, in my case, it's a little more severe, so I'm still trying to learn through it. And the unfortunate part is that, one, running takes a big toll on your body and your stress level, and it really needs nutrition, which is the two things that unfortunately I can't figure out just yet. Even now, sometimes, with our scheduled long runs that I've gone, I'm like, oh my gosh, I was like, I'm literally like throwing up right now, or I can't leave the restroom right now. And so it's been tough, and it's going to be tough. And it's, as much as I want to, I do sometimes just cry, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I just want to be a normal runner. Can I just not, worry about having, and this might be TMI, but explosive diarrhea, at mile 10 or something. But sadly, that's my life, and that's what's going to come down to. So now what I'm trying to work on is being okay with that. So it's like, it's okay. there's a porta potty. And hey, if someone hears you fart or do something, it's like that's human nature. That's the body, and that's it happens. So it's just really trying to navigate those waters and trying to figure out what works, what doesn't. Sometimes when I eat my bland diet, it still doesn't help me at all. And so if I'm still either puking or going to the bathroom like 5 times in a matter of 30 minutes, I'm like, I was like, this is supposed to help. And so it's tough because again, IBS is a very umbrella term.
Hmm.
And so I've gone through specific testing for celiac, for Crohn's. And again, they come up with, no, there's nothing. And, to a point where I was getting yearly endoscopies, colonoscopies, and I'm like, man, this is a tough like thing to do. Now I've graduated to every 3 years, so that's exciting. But again, the thing is just, man, I just wish there was something I can just, and as much as I hate to say it, but I was like, I wish there was just like a pill I could take and then it could all get better. Um,
Yeah.
but it's just trying to figure that out. And again, mentally, I think that's the new battle, where again, everything's not linear. And so you have your, peaks and valleys. And so I think learning to figure out, okay, well, now different stressors in life are causing these reactions. So I'm like, okay, like, how do I do that? How do I navigate that?
Yeah. And the running journey teaches us those things too, which I think is actually
Mhm.
this like interesting parallel in which like the lessons we learn on these running adventures parallel a lot of life hardships. And as we like think ahead to Javelina, I'm really curious to hear, I guess, one, like, is this scholarship with Trust Society and Rabbit allowing you to show up to this race in a new way, which is exciting. We're like very, very thrilled that Javelina is just around the corner. But also, like, what are you hoping to take away from that experience of coming and running at Javelina?
I mean, everything's going to be so new to me, so I'm just so excited. And again, I just want to be a sponge and just soak it all in and just keep it with me because I know it's going to be truly special, especially again having the privilege of getting this scholarship. That weight of, the financial burden is kind of lifted. And so I'm like, okay, now I can focus on like genuinely having fun. And it's like, okay, doing this is not super selfish and it's not super taking away from, hey, I could have used that money to, try to get a different, blood work procedure, whatever. And so I'm like, no, like I can do this for me and it's gonna be for me. And so I'm just excited to meet people. Again, I've realized that again, within the running community, it's a small world, but I feel like even the trail world is a lot smaller. So I'm just excited to meet new people, see their journeys there, talk about it. I have actually a couple friends that are going to Javelina, and they're doing the 100K, so I'm so excited for them. And so I'm like, I'll do one, well, I'm doing one loop, but I'm like, I'm there and I can cheer you on after I'm done and you guys keep going. So it's gonna be an amazing experience. I know it.
It's You're not gonna even be just trail curious. You're gonna be like trail hungry after this. You're gonna need trail in your life.
Yeah.
And 2026, we're gonna have a whole crew from KRSA come out to
Yeah.
Javelina. It'll
Right.
be
Well, it's funny
excellent.
because there's been so many runners like within the group that have slowly ventured to trail and they've never came back. And one of them is doing the javelina, and I was like, "Hey, I saw you because I volunteered for a trail run almost a year ago, and I saw her there. She's like, "Hey, come help, blah blah blah." And then ever since then, I'm like, I'm like, I only see you because sometimes we'll host trail runs too. I'm like, I just see you at the trail runs now. And she's like, come on over. I'm like,
Yeah.
with wide arms, we'll wait for you here.
Yeah, you're gonna be a convert. We're looking forward to taking another one
Yeah.
for the trail team.
Yeah.
In closing, unless Keely has anything else to add, but we ask all of our guests,
Mhm.
independent of if they're coming on to tell us about, their new research or runners like yourself, we ask everyone the same question, and we've learned a lot from this question as well. And it's simply, what is one thing that you know now that you wish you knew when you were younger? Maybe that's your elementary school self, maybe that's your college self, but what's that one tidbit?
Oh man. uh, I I think it's kind of what we talked about where it's like running is going to teach you so much in life, and it's going to open new doors, it's going to close some doors, but ultimately nothing is linear. It's you go up and down again. Like you have a big hill you're going to tackle it on and just break it down into pieces, and it's like, all right, we're going to get to this part of the hill, we're going to get to this next part. So I think it's just telling myself, even though it's hard, it will be okay, to, to whatever extent, and just being okay with whatever that plays out to be. Sometimes, again, with long runs where I'm like, man, well, I didn't get to do that 18 miler, but it's like, no, don't rush to catch up to try to rush into this mileage. It's like, you know what? It's okay. That day just didn't happen. Look for the next day and make that one count, whatever that looks like. If you decide to run the 18 miles, if you decide to run 10, it's whatever you can do at that moment is what you can do at that moment. And you don't know what you don't know until you get out there, and that's just what it's going to be like. And even though things look intimidating, it's like, just do it. And they probably aren't.
That's so perfect. And I think
Yeah.
that's something that we can all take with us into our next long run,
Mhm.
either when we get an A plus or when we have to pull the plug. It's an important realization. Clarabelle, thank you so much for joining us. This was awesome.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm so excited. And again, thank you for the opportunity with the team. I love the sweater, by the way. The little trout. I like take it everywhere because it fits me so perfect. And so I wear it and people are like, oh my God, it's so cute. I was like, oh yeah, it's Trail Society with Red Rabbit. And they're like, oh, what's that? But it's so cute. I love it. I love it. I wear it everywhere.
I think a lot of Clarabelle's story is very, I don't know, recognizable, something you can relate to, having that kind of burnout moment in college and then finding your truly chosen family in running, in trail, in community. And that to me really stuck out in the sense like I've got an amazing family, but I don't live close to them. And so I do have that same like chosen family around me here in the PNW and in Seattle in particular. So really excited to get to watch Clairville experience an even larger chosen family when we see her at Javelina in just a couple weeks.
I'm so excited to meet her in person.
Yeah, Keely's going to be holding down the cheer fort at Javelina.
Yeah, I'll bring all of my rabbit gear, all the flowers, and see how many like selfies and shout outs I can get wearing all of the gear. Hopefully whoever's going to Javelina who has some of the flower gear also wears it so we can all match together. But yeah, and please remember to tag us in all of your rabbit gear because we love seeing the flowers out on the trail. If you want to snag any of the leftover stuff, we still have some crew necks. You could match me right now. There's a little flower on the front. We have a couple of the lichen long sleeves left, and we have some of the ice bandanas left. So make sure to go over and check that stuff out.
Also, ice bandanas in time for Javelina. You
Javelina.
might need some flower ice bandanas.
And one thing I have to say that Rabbit provided some gear for the Hilly Goat run camp, and they had the ice bandanas and the crew. And one of the coolest moments was when I came into the kitchen when we're all waking up pre-run and everyone had their sweatshirt on, getting
That's
coffee in the
amazing.
thing. I need to like get a little picture of it,
Oh
but
my
like
gosh,
we even
yes.
got and Jordan, he was the only guy there, and like they weren't sure if he wanted like a flower one, so he was the only one left out, so I gave him mine.
Oh, you got to get a new one now.
That's okay.
Well,
That's incredibly cute.
all right. Well, if you guys want to join us, head over to Runner Rabbit. We have a new code for October. 10% off is Hoptober. Again, it's the punny one, Hoptober 10 for 10% off.
Awesome. Hilly, you want to kick off our Society Slam?
oh yeah, from all the way up Spanish world champs. Well, actually, not Spanish world champs, but world champs in Spain at the start line when I was behaving like a little minnow and like jogging back and forth, waiting for the vertical start. This little Chilean man came over, and it was him and his daughter asking to take a picture with me. They were there to support the Chilean team and cheer on, and they said that they loved the podcast and that they listen, both of them together, and that they're big trail runners. And then they wished me luck for my race. So that was a great little send off.
That's so cute. I love the family dynamic of listening together. Keely, you want to take this one, or do you want me to take it?
I can take it. This
Do
one's
it.
a little bit of a lengthy one. So let's get going. First of all, don't want to sound ungrateful or like a negative Nelly on this because I truly do love the focus on supporting moms. And I do think there are ways to go on factoring in all of the struggles. So many of the grants and scholarships I see are going to young moms with young, cute infants and toddlers. Don't get me wrong, those are tough years for sure, and support is so helpful. The support, however, doesn't quite flow when the kids are a little older. I've been a single mom since my daughter was 7, full 24/7 custody during COVID while also working with almost no outside help. My kiddos didn't quote unquote need childcare because she was too old, but yet not old enough to stay alone, and babysitters were tough to come by. I made do with 4 a.m. training runs on a hand-me-down treadmill and couldn't race because I didn't have the support and also couldn't afford the entry fees. I'm glad other moms in similar situations are now getting the financial support I so desperately needed. But those expenses don't go away when they outgrow their diapers. I'd say sweet kiddos just keep getting more expensive. My little one is now old enough to stay at home when I'm out for a long run, but not really ready to stay at home alone if I'm racing, which means double the travel expenses plus paying to have a friend there to hang out with her or scrambling to find a place for her to stay while I'm gone. That generally means I don't get to go do the big fun races. I stay local, which is great and all for sure, but still a restriction. So many of these grants go to when the kids are cute and cuddly. I hope they start to expand to cover the cost of when kids are a little older but still not independent. I would love to be able to afford to travel to a race and have my daughter there to crew, but that cost will never be in the current budget. Hoping someone sees beyond the cute little ones and sees the financial needs of moms with older kids in the next rounds of grants and support. Thanks for all you do. I think that was really good to hear. I think that obviously, as someone with no children, I don't really know how stretched thin you are and how long that kind of period lasts for. And so I think it's just a good reminder that, you know, the support can extend beyond their infant years for sure.
Yeah, and I don't think, I mean, I know one of the moms who was awarded a grant for the Strava for All Mothers grant pool, and like she doesn't have a toddler.
Mm-hmm.
Like she has an older child. So I feel like it's probably promoted as such, right? Of like infants
Mm-hmm.
need care. But I think that don't I would not consider you ineligible for
Mm-hmm.
a child care grant, for example. So maybe don't put that context on yourself either, in which it's like there's no qualifier on that says your child that you don't qualify because your child isn't 4 or 5 or 6.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe also recognize that I think that you are eligible for that. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know how old your child currently is, but
Mm-hmm.
that is available to you
Yeah.
as well as they continue to work on these child care grants, but also races that are starting to implement having child care present
Mm-hmm.
there as well, particularly the ones that are happening out of ski resorts because they already have licensed childcare facilities on site. Those are the races that are having the easiest time of having it implemented at their events as well. So
Mm-hmm.
I'd keep
Yeah.
your eyes peeled for events that are based out of ski resort style places because
Mm-hmm.
they are having an easier time with the insurance angle of
Mm-hmm.
providing childcare at events because that is a tall task for event organizers.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's true. It's not just about diapers. It's
Mm-hmm.
kids. You can't leave like a 7-year-old home alone, you know?
No. Or even
So
like a 12-year-old, you can't leave them for like a weekend, you know?
yeah, you can't be like, bye, peace out. I'll be home on
Yeah.
Monday.
But maybe just a good reminder to like when we do talk about these grants and stuff, just to re-emphasize that they are for anybody who has children.
Has minors in the
Yeah.
home, right?
Hmm.
It's not, turns out kids is a wide-ranging topic. Not just babies. And I guess the last one is short and sweet and made us all laugh when it showed up in the outline, and that is simply just wanted to resurface, quote, big dogs gotta eat. Saw it in a bathroom here in France. That is the kind of graffiti I can get behind. I'm hoping it wasn't like a sticker or like a formal portrait. It
No,
was
it was
like
written. Yeah.
scribbled on a bathroom stall. That makes me incredibly happy that our mission statement has gone absolutely global and big dogs gotta eat. And speaking of big dogs, gotta eating. If you're listening to this right now on the trail, you should probably have a snack. Enjoy the rest of your run, and until next time, we'll catch you out on the trails.